So this is Lightweight Hydrocal by Woodland Scenics, which is a casting plaster designed to allow you to easily cast realistic looking rocks, rock faces, cliff faces using this sort of mould. Also by Woodland Scenics. But can someone who has never used anything like this before really get a realistic rock effect? What sort of effects do you get? And what sort of things do you need to be aware of and watch out for? Well, today we're going to test it. We're going to see what works, what doesn't work, and see if this sort of thing is right for you and your project. Let's go. So, I'm going to let you into a bit of a secret. So I wanted to create some awesome rock effects to make a vignette as part of a project that I'm currently working on. So I borrowed this set from my dad, who has used it for a large model railway layout that he's working on. Now, I've never used anything like this before. So this video will either be showing something super easy or lots of ways of how I can screw it up. Right, so these are just a few of the range of rock molds from Woodland Scenics. Now each mould has the product code stamped into the mould itself. So I'll put links for all of these and everything else I'm going to be using today down in the description. I'll also put it on my website at flyingravenstudios.com. So if this looks like right for your project, then just click on the links to check them out for the most up-to-date prices, etc. So looking at these molds, they have a lot of detail for a wide range of different rock formations, from surface rocks to building massive rock walls and cliff faces. Now, at the start, these do look interesting. So next is this stuff. This is Woodland Scenics Lightweight Hydrocal, which is one of their casting plasters. Now, according to the marketing at least, it should be easy to use, with its lightweight making it ideal for everything from miniature bases to dioramas or huge terrain layouts, especially where you want to avoid things buckling under the weight. Also, evidently, this lightweight hydrocal will go twice as far as the normal hydrocal. Now, I can't say if this is worth it or not, as I could not find the original hydrocal online to compare costs. But let's see how this stuff performs. Next we have a vegetable oil-based mould release to help get the cast rock out of the mould. Some other bits of kit I'm going to use is a clean bowl, a spatula and clean water, as well as an old toothbrush to help clean the moulds up after use. Okay, so the first test I want to do is to see what effect the mould release actually has. Is it needed, or is it an expense you can do without? So to test it, I'm going to lightly coat half the moulds and half of them just leave dry. Okay, so let's make up the plaster. First, I'm going to gently shake the carton to get an even mix throughout. The second thing I want to test is how forgiving it is. Do I need to really accurately measure it, or can I just eyeball it? This mix is fairly runny and has lots of bubbles in it, but it does pour nicely into the mould, and the bubbles are coming to the surface, which is what I want, rather than stay on the detail side. The third variable I want to test is, can I use part of the mould? So what I mean by this, if I support one end of the mould and tip it up slightly, the plaster will pool at one half the mould. Now, if this works, then it means that if you only need a smaller rock or want something for the base of a miniature, for example, then you're not going to waste plaster unnecessarily. So now that's poured, I'm going to leave it and come back to that later. Okay, so when I came back to it after a couple of hours, it was still slightly soft, so I've now left it overnight and it has gone hard. Now pushing them out of the moulds, some are cracking, but the texture does look really nice. But the surface of this larger rock still feels a bit weird. It seems dry, but at the same time it also feels like there's a lot of moisture still in there. It's also not very tough, it's quite crumbly. Now looking at the moulds, you can see that there is quite a lot of residue on the ones where I did not use the mould release. Also, the detail is not quite as crisp in some places as it would otherwise be. One thing to note is that despite the bubbles when I poured it, there does not seem to be any bubbles in the detail that I can see. Okay, so this time I'm going to try again, but this time measure it out as accurately as possible. Interestingly, this mix is a lot thicker than the last one. I'm going to have to use a spatula to almost spoon it into the moulds rather than pour it. Thinking about it, yes, I measured it very carefully, but rather than loosely pour it out the powder, measure out the powder, I did kind of tamp it down, so therefore it was, I tried to get a more accurate result, but that may also have resulted in potentially slightly more powder than was intended. So yeah, there is a little bit of variability there, even if you try and measure it really carefully. But I've just had a thought. Now, on the carton, it says that you can stain it with earth colours and liquid pigment. So yeah, I'm going to play around with painting it later, but that gave me an idea. So what if I add the pigments to the mix before I even put it in the mould? What sort of effect will that have? Now, this is not going to be the most cost-effective way of doing it, I am sure. But just to test out the theory, I'm going to use some AK Interactive Track Rust pigment from the AK Interactive's Engines and Metal Weathering set. Now, gently mixing this in is giving it a really nice sandstone-like colour. And spooning that into the moulds is reminding me of a chocolate cake mix. So whilst that is drying, I'm off to bake a cake. Okay, so just an hour later, let's see what we have. Now this has dried a lot quicker than the first mix. Already these seem lighter and a lot tougher, a lot less crumbly than the first mix. That kind of indicates that the carefully measuring it rather than eyeballing it is a lot better, especially when you're first starting out with it. So that is a lesson learned. Also, the detail on these with that foam mixture is beautiful. Hold on, let me turn off one of my lights so we can get a bit more contrast. There you go, look at that. Okay, let's look at the one with the pigment already mixed in. Oh yeah, okay, that does look cool, even without any further work doing it to it. Also, it means that if you break a bit off deliberately or by accident, then you're not going to have white plaster showing through. But one thing to be aware of is that I noticed, especially on the thin piece, the rock face bit, so when I spooned it into the mould, it's kind of sunk down slightly into the mould itself. So therefore, when I removed it from the mould, the reverse side was slightly concave. Now this might not be a problem, but if you are trying to lay it onto something and you're not supporting that, then it could crack. Now I could simply fix this by either overfilling it and then sanding it down to make it flush to the surface that I'm putting it on, or supporting it better from behind when I'm sticking it onto a surface, for example. So that's something to be aware of. But I've also thought some other things which I'm going to try out in a bit. But overall, when it comes to casting rocks and rock faces with these Woodland Scenics, Lightweight Hydrocal and these moulds, then yeah, I'm liking them so far. So if these look good for you in your project, then check out the links in the description. But that is not all, because this is just the first in a series of looking at how you can use these in different ways, painting them to get different rock effects, everything from sandstone to granite or whatever you need for the environment for the project you're working on. So let me know down in the comments if there is a certain rock effect that you would like me to have a look at in more detail. So in that case, you might want to check out those videos coming up next. But if you like that, you found it helpful, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you on the next project.